And if you are old like me, it is really, really important that old men pay attention to young men. Not just because we are called to do that as the older generation, not just because Jesus would have us disciple younger men into him, into the body of Christ. That's the primary reason. The secondary reason is, and it's far below the need to disciple and our role in discipling and the command to go and make disciples. It's far below that, but it's a great consolation prize is these are going to be the kids who make decisions about what our country's like as we're sitting around in hospital beds having applesauce wiped from our face. And if you want to have the applesauce wiped from your face in a caring and considerate manner, it might be a good idea to spend some time hanging out with young guys. Now, the best way to do that is in person, serving in youth ministries. It's been such a blessing for me. I spend time with young guys 15 to 21 every week. I spend time from time to time when I can with younger male friends in the gym, and I hear these concerns, etc. But on our podcast, we did a segment that wasn't even about Nick Fuentes. It was about people, older men, not as old as me, but older men trying to speak into the lives of Nick Fuentes' followers and trying to understand them or correct them without the virtue of spending a lot of time around Nick Fuentes' content. And in this piece, my producer Alex came on set, which is something we don't often do. And I didn't give him a heads up. I just, hey, why don't you come on set? So he wasn't even prepared. So, okay. Neither of us have watched a full Fuentes episode. And we fully admitted that. And the point of the segment was God speaks into the lives of young men. There are plenty of biblical verses where God, through the apostles, addresses young men, through the prophets, addresses young men. So what we were suggesting is instead of a Fuentes or me or a Tucker Carlson or whomever as a male role model, the prime male role model is Christ Jesus, and his words are available. The words of God are available through the Bible. This should be the groundwork. That was the point of this. It was also the point to say to men of one generation, you do not understand the struggles of the other generation. And there's plenty of people who looked at the struggles of the younger generation and said, they don't have any. Really? Young men have had so much stolen from them in the United States. The generational theft of the COVID era, that stole a lot from a lot of people, a lot of very, very important experiences. The theft of education. They have not been given the sort of classical education that people in prior generations were given that created great thinkers. So they've got high IQs, many of them, but unguided because they weren't given that advantage. It was taken from them on purpose because the job was to create little worker bots. Now, I've been through this frustration as a young guy, and when I discovered how much was stolen from me, and I had to go back up and catch up on education that was taken from me, partly because of the government schools, but partly because I was a jackass when I was a kid and didn't go seek out advanced education because I was being a rageful young man, I can relate to this. But what we got in response was some really passionate comments from people who follow Fuentes. And again, the video wasn't even about Nick. So this is some examples of some of the conversations going. And when I tell these young guys, I want to meet them, take them out to dinner and eat steak with them, I'll buy, I mean it. That'd be a real honor for me. This guy wrote back, is Pandagen7772, quote, rage culture of the younger generation has been the catalyst to revolutions throughout history. Not flaccid old men who are afraid to rock the boat and possibly lose what they've accumulated. 10 likes on that comment. It's so fascinating to hear rage culture put back in your face when you're someone who's been arrested twice, you were expelled from school on the last day of sixth grade, kicked out of school countless times. Your sixth grade principal told your best friend's mother, don't let your son hang out with Todd because he's going to land in prison. That's his future, etc. To have rage culture put back in your face. And I replied, partly thoughtfully, partly because of my flesh, LOL, flaccid, you watch one clip and know everything. You have no idea what I gave up to be independent, how God has rewarded that. Enjoy your rage. I will lean on God's wisdom. And then I continued to say, anytime you want to come and rock a workout with me, we can do that. We'll find out who's flaccid. Afterwards, it'll be my pleasure to buy you a steak, dinner, and to hear from you the challenges of your youth. The anger of young men is well earned. And I can't get you because I'm closer to 60 than I want to be. That's not even true. I don't care that I'm close to 60. I actually don't care. That's a cliche. But what I can relate to is looking at a guy like Mitch McConnell, who has lizarded his way into being utterly filthy rich at your expense. I take umbrage. I put a chicken in every pot. Sometimes double. Senator. Yeah, I can relate to that. He's totally stolen from you. So has Nancy Pelosi. So has Wall Street, that is corrupt in ways people don't even recognize. I don't even know if you guys know this for all your rage. Maybe Fuentes has told you about this. Did you know that super wealthy investors get to skip ahead of you in line? If a bunch of you guys decide to go out and organize as a group of Fuentes followers and just go buy GameStop stock, and I'm not saying you did that, but if you decided to do that, do you know that the algos, once they notice that, would actually let big investors step in front of you, buy that stock, and then sell it back to you for just a little bit more? And they say that this adds liquidity to the market. No, what it does is it makes the stock more expensive to you. You should be angry about that. And then you should realize God told you. There's going to be times like these. And people are going to follow false teachers. This is another comment we got. And again, this segment was not about Nick. I don't know how many times in the segment Alex and I said we've never seen a full Fuentes episode. I'm going to now because one young man was actually kind enough to say, hey, absolutely, watch this episode. This is Nick. I'm doing it. I can't wait. You guys are so out of touch, it's insane. Young men didn't just wake up angry and start listening to Nick Fuentes out of nowhere. There are real social and economic frustrations you're glossing over that are affecting an entire generation. And then again, I responded. And he said, and to say that 3/4 of his audience are bots rather than actual people who are struggling and overwhelmed by a failing system is wild. The level of dismissal is exactly why so many young men feel ignored in the first place. Couple of great points. And in this response, I touched on the lizardy Mitch McConnell thing, and there's a lot more lizards than Mitch McConnell. I worked in D.C. I saw the lizards. I lived in a world where my first couple weeks in D.C., I was offered a stinking bribe for $1 million or so if I just shut my mouth and let this woman continue to steal from the Republican National Committee by pretending to do online fundraising. All you had to do is keep my mouth shut. $1 million to start, more than that afterwards. Made me sick. And on the topic of the bots, I didn't determine that. There's a link that we have in the show notes. You can go read the piece, The Manufactured Rise of Nick Fuentes, how artificial virality tricked the platforms and the press into elevating a fringe voice. Now, that fringe voice thing, that's coming from the minds and the words of a guy who's in his late 50s, is an academic with a master's degree. He considers Nick fringe. I don't. I don't consider voices of youthful anger to be fringe because they're youthful. I don't know enough about Fuentes to say he has fringe views. I know that Fuentes does things that make him seem fringe to those of us without the context. And the context is many, many people coming and saying, do you even understand why he says Hitler's cool? No, and I don't really care. Oh, what the context is that it's okay that we never talk about Genghis Khan, or we never talk about it's okay to talk about Genghis Khan in history, but you can't talk about Hitler. No. I understand that. For instance, you'll notice that the Mockingbird media and academia never condemned the crimes of Joseph Stalin or Chairman Mao. Notice that? Because people recognize them as communists, therefore they're not going to talk about that, but they'll talk about the crimes of Hitler, and they'll make a new Hitler movie every single year. There's a new Hitler movie because he's been successfully they pretended enough to be right-wing, even though he was a socialist and also a sociopath. But when you come out and say things like Hitler's cool, you're going to get attention for saying Hitler's cool, and Nick Fuentes is a smart enough guy to know he's going to get attention for that. And young men who are sick to death of being lectured to about you can't say this, you can't say that, they're going to come along and say, you know what, I'm so tired of you telling me what I can't say. I'm going to say the most outrageous things because I can. Again, to have rage culture put back in my face, when our radio station changed format and we were all out of work, we started an online broadcasting company that started, its first name was Extreme Talk, and we got to be extreme, baby. Got to stand up on in front of a camera and say the most extreme things in the extreme way with extreme words. And man, I felt so free. I could say the F word, etc. I could say his points the way I'd never been able to say them before. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we've been together 30 years, one day she told me, she said, "You're not charming anymore. Your show's no longer charming. We always knew that you wanted to say those things, but you never did out of restraint. Now that you're saying those things, you're just saying those things." Now, it's on the topic of faith that was most interesting to me. People talking about Nick Fuentes bringing people to God, because I'd laid out a challenge to a couple of the young men. And I'll talk about that in a second, because it's very, very, very important. It's the most important thing. There's a lot of ways to bring people to God. There's also ways to respect God's design. God designed my young friend Alan to be who he is. He's 14. He's been through 18 operations. He's effectively nonverbal. And he works every single day very, very hard at his soap company. He's in packaging, making sure that things are packaged correctly, quality control, taking any bar of soap that has any flaw and tossing it. And they'll put that into some packages they build. They don't waste this stuff, but they'll build these broken packages, and you try different fragrances of the soap. His brother Ian works there. He's also autistic. And this soap isn't made in some weird factory in China. It's made in the Midwest, United States, by a family with 3 generations of soap making expertise. This is a great stocking stuffer. Go to allensoaps.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get 10% off all their products, and prove once again that to you all lives matter. allensoaps.com/Todd. This came from a YouTube account. I'm not even going to try to say the name. It looks very bottish to me. No offense. Maybe you're a real person, JK something or other. The modern institutional church will now react to Fuentes because it has done a terrible job at guiding young men to date, assuming boomer Christianity even cares enough. So I wrote back and said, "Praise be to God, American men are joining the church in high numbers, choosing the most institution or denominations. Do you think Nick was a part of that?" What I will want to see, and what I'm going to hope to see when I watch these full episodes of Fuentes, starting with the one this young man was kind enough to send me, where Fuentes goes into a warehouse. He has a conversation with a young kid working in the warehouse, a young man working in the warehouse. Can't wait. What I'm going to be looking for are the fruits of the Spirit. I want to see fruits of Christianity. I want to see a man who's humble, who's patient, who's kind, who's loving, who doesn't keep lists of grievances, who seeks to serve and not be served. And I'm going to expect I won't find it. I'm going to expect that. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Why am I going to expect to not find that? Because I've never been famous on the Nick Fuentes level, been well known, adjacent to fame, but I've been infamous. And I've been the big, big fish in a fairly big media market, and I know I wasn't providing fruits of the Spirit.